So this is going to be the first of a series of mini webinars that we'll be presenting probably around this time every week, called Briefing with the Admiral. I, of course, am the Admiral in question, and I will be briefing everybody, that's internal and external alike, on a topic that's of interest and relevance both to our crew and to potential new recruits. Today is stardate negative 268216.9. At some point, we'll do an episode about what star dates are exactly, but not today. Today, we're going to be starting with the most fundamental question about that revolves around why we're here, which is what is the USS Dauntless? What is this thing that we're doing here? Why are we here? What's happening? At its core, the Dauntless is a community of like-minded people who have an interest in common, which is Star Trek, but not just enjoyment of Star Trek as a medium of entertainment. Also, an appreciation for Star Trek as a vision for the future of humankind, a potential place where humanity might go someday. But not only an appreciation of it, we take that one step further, and that is taking action to bring the world closer to that eventual future. I'm not talking about political activism or anything like that. I'm talking acts of altruism and kindness, trying to make life better for somebody, for some people, or for everybody, piece by piece, every day, doing what we can. So that is, in essence, what the USS Dauntless is. But there's more to it than just that. So to go into this a little bit more, I'm going to switch over to the Dauntless website, to our About Us section. Let's see if I can figure out this interface. There we go. That looks good. All right, fantastic. So on the About Us section of our website, we've got this where it says, what is the USS Dauntless? Now, the Dauntless is a Star Trek fan club based in Cape Town, South Africa. So fan club is a term that I don't particularly like, not because it's inaccurate, but because it's incomplete. So a fan club is kind of an alien concept here in South Africa, as you might know. We don't really have that here. But what we know of it is what we see in TV and movies, and it conjures up images of a bunch of nerds sitting in a room together, showing off their collectibles, having arguments about their fandom of choice, in our case Star Trek, maybe speaking strange languages, using jargon terminology, sharing jokes about it, and that kind of thing. Now, all of those things are true. We do all of those things right here in Discord, so that's not inaccurate. But what it is, as I mentioned, incomplete. What that doesn't include is the parts of our existence which involve taking action to bring the world towards the vision of the future as depicted in Star Trek. So, fan club is not inaccurate, but it is incomplete. Let's carry on. We're a Starfleet-style club, complete with ranks, titles, and uniforms. As you can see, I'm wearing a uniform right now. I have a rank on my collar, and I introduce myself with my title, Commanding Officer of the USS Dauntless. I have a few other titles too, but that's the one that's relevant today. Starfleet style means that we have organized ourselves around um, the structural organization of the fictional Starfleet as depicted in Star Trek. So, of course, if you're here, that means you've seen at least some Star Trek, and you understand that most of it revolves around characters who are part of this organization called Starfleet, which is a division of the fictional entity, the United Federation of Planets, which exists in the future, in our future, in what they imagine might be our future several centuries ahead. And the fictional Starfleet is the descendant of present-day NASA and other similar organizations. Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, imagined that in the future NASA and her sister organizations would eventually merge into one manned spaceflight program, which would eventually become what he considered Starfleet. So that is what he imagined it would be. Although we are not a space exploration organization, the real world Starfleet, what we call Starfleet International, models ourselves on the organizational structure and the aesthetics of that fictional Starfleet. So that's what we mean when we say we're a Starfleet style club. So we borrow a lot of the terminology and the stylistic elements developed for that fictional Starfleet here in the real one. Moving on to more about that. We are also a chapter of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated. What does that mean? I'll do a separate webinar like this on Starfleet itself in the future, but just a quick rundown for now. Starfleet is the largest Star Trek fan club in the world. Um, that, as far as I know, remains true. We've got several thousand members across multiple countries, hundreds of chapters around the world. But there's a tricky word there, chapter. What does that mean? So in organizations that are like Starfleet, which is big umbrella organizations that cover large territories, it's easy and practical to break up their members into little local units, and those units are called chapters. Each chapter is semi-autonomous. They organize themselves locally and under their own chain of command. In Starfleet International, we use the metaphor of a starship, a fictional starship, to represent each chapter. We'll go into a little bit more about that later, but that's what a chapter is. It's just a local group of members. Ours is based here in Cape Town, although we do have members in cities around the world. We've always had an online existence. Our base of operations is here in Cape Town. So we are the Cape Town chapter of Starfleet International. So the largest Star Trek fan club in the world, being one of their chapters, connects us to hundreds of other starships. Again, starships are chapters, and thousands of other members across the world. Of course, being an American institution, Star Trek and Starfleet is largest in the United States and in North America, but of course there are other chapters in dozens of other countries, and we are one of those going on. We're not just an online group, although we are an online group. We have obviously our Discord server, which is the main center of our operations. We have communications channels online, things like our Google group, our Facebook group, half a dozen others that are perhaps less commonly used, but we have them. So our existence and our coordination layer happens all online, but we don't do everything that we do only online. We regularly get together for social events and away missions like games days, hikes, 5K runs, paintball, conventions, movie nights, and lots more. If you've been around on the Dauntless for some time, you'll know that we often have a very busy calendar of events coming up, including things like mission readiness events, which is to try and get us ready and fit, including our blood donation missions, which are our most important events. We'll go into that more in future, and then various other fun events like, again, games days where we get together and play games together, movie nights where we go and see a movie together. But we also have online events, things like our watch parties. Those happen online, so whenever there's a new episode of Star Trek, we get together that Friday and we watch it together here on Discord on this very channel. So the online thing is quite important. That is where our main coordination happens. As I mentioned earlier, we also have crew members in a number of cities around the world who participate in our events in their own away teams. The away team metaphor is an organization system that we use to coordinate our members who live in cities outside of Cape Town, South Africa. And we'll go into more detail in a future video about that. Our crew members had the opportunity to earn rank promotions by volunteering for service at the chapter, region, and fleet level, or simply by engaging with their crewmates in day-to-day activities aboard the ship. So this brings us back to the organizational structure of Starfleet. Now we use ranks in Star Trek. As you may recall, Starfleet uses the rank system that it's borrowed from the United States Navy, so we use the same kind of naval ranks here in Starfleet and in the USS Dauntless. And you earn rank promotions by getting involved in ship's activities. Ranks in Starfleet and in the Dauntless work a little bit differently to how they do in the military. Some people use the term fictional ranks. I don't really like that, but if it helps you to think of it in those terms, that's fine. Basically, we need to remember that although the ranks that we use have the same name as the military ranks, they don't mean the same thing. I have the Starfleet rank of Admiral, but that is not equivalent to an Admiral in the Navy. I haven't done the work necessary to become an Admiral in the Navy. I've done a different kind of work, which has made me an Admiral in Starfleet. But also the approach to how ranks work is slightly different in Starfleet. In the real world military, a rank is a qualification that allows you to operate at a certain level of authority within the military institution. But in Starfleet, a rank is more of a recognition of the work that you've already served. It's a noddy badge. You can hold the rank of Admiral and never do another piece of work ever in your career, whereas that wouldn't really fly in the Navy. If you're an Admiral, you're expected to serve at an Admiral level. But it's kind of the other way around here in Starfleet. We'll have another video again in future talking about the various ways that crew members can earn rank advancement and other forms of recognition that are available so that we can thank and recognize our members for doing good stuff. So that's kind of encapsulates, I think, what the Dauntless is, but it's also helpful to understand what the Dauntless is in terms of what it isn't. So let's look through a few things that the Dauntless isn't. So firstly, we're not a role-playing group. Although some of our members do enjoy some role-playing games from time to time, our ranks and titles are earned through real-life activities, not just pretending. Now, it's worth pointing out at this point that Starfleet International, again, has hundreds of chapters around the world, and not everybody approaches the way that they operate the same way that the Dauntless does. Each chapter has a great deal of autonomy to choose how they engage with Starfleet membership, and rank is one of those things that they have a great deal to choose from. Although the Dauntless, we choose to recognize real life activities and getting stuck in and actually doing stuff for rank promotion purposes. Some chapters out there are quite happy awarding ranks for role-playing purposes. If the organizing, unifying structure of their ship is revolved around a role-playing game, which plenty of chapters are organized that way, then they may choose to assign rank on that basis, and that is their choice. Of course, once you get up to a high enough rank, which is the rank captain and above, that gets a bit more complicated because those ranks are no longer awarded by the chapter command staff. They are then awarded by Starfleet International, and SFI command are a bit more stringent about how they award ranks, but at least at the lower officer levels, that can be determined by chapter staff. And role-playing is not an invalid way of assigning ranks. That's just not how we do it here on the Dauntless. Next, we're not a cosplay group. Again, this varies from chapter to chapter. There are some chapters in Starfleet that are cosplay groups, that their main organizing function is to build screen accurate uniforms and take photo shoots together, and that's perfectly legitimate. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just not what we do here on the Dauntless. On the Dauntless, our members take great pride in the uniforms that they wear, having spent in some cases decades earning the privilege of wearing them. Although some among us do enjoy cosplaying from time to time, our uniforms are professional attire, not costumes. So in the case of my uniform, this represents my Starfleet career. So the red color is my branch of service color. Red stands for command in the specific uniform set, which tells you about which branch of service I operate in within Starfleet. The pips here on my collar indicate my Starfleet rank of Admiral, which took me over 2 decades to earn. I worked very hard for this rank, and I'm very proud of the time that I spent and the effort that I put in order to earn this privilege of wearing this uniform. Now, costumers might wear a uniform like this, but they didn't earn the right to wear it the same way that I did. That doesn't mean they can't wear it if they're wearing it as cosplay. That's perfectly legitimate. But therein lies the distinction between a costume and a uniform. A costume is dressing up as somebody that you are not. A uniform is dressing up as somebody that you are. I am a Starfleet Admiral, therefore when I wear this uniform, I am dressing up as myself, not as a fictional character. Right, next, we are not a business. The Dauntless is a non-profit volunteer organization. We charge no membership fees, and all our expenses are paid for by anonymous donations by some of our members. The Dauntless doesn't have a bank account. We don't charge fees. We've never handled any money. If the expenses happen to pop up from time to time, which we try to avoid at all costs, yes, that's an unintended pun. If costs do arise, then we will have that handled by an anonymous donor, typically from within our ranks. We don't recognize financial contributions in terms of rank promotions and that kind of thing, which is why we insist that they must be anonymous. There's a little image here on the left of your screen here of myself, as well as one of our other crew members. That is, she was at the time Chief Sue Patterson. She's now Lieutenant Commander Sue Patterson. She was wearing a cosplay, and I was wearing my uniform back when I was a Commodore. There you can see the stark difference between a uniform and a costume. A costume represents something that you are not. A uniform represents something that you are. All right, I think we've covered that aspect of it quite well. Let's move on to the name. Why call it the USS Dauntless? So Starfleet uses fictional elements inspired by Star Trek as the organizing metaphor for its internal structures. I mentioned that earlier. Specifically, Starfleet chapters are referred to as starships, and their chapter presidents are referred to as commanding officers. There are other elements of fictional Starfleet organizational structure incorporated into the real Starfleet, but that'll all come later. Specifically, we're only looking at ships for right now. So, just to be clear, we don't believe that there is any actual space vessel called the USS Dauntless. The name refers to the organizational structure that binds us together as a group. The starship isn't a ship at all, it's the crew. Um, just to dispel any rumors, we don't actually think that any of it is real, we just like thinking about it as a metaphor. The ship's imaginary design and technical specifications are an extension of the metaphor that helps us to define various thematic elements, including which set of uniforms our crew wears. So because the ship that we've chosen to represent us, the metaphorical USS Dauntless, is a Defiant class starship, it's anchored within a specific time period in the Star Trek universe, and in that time period, this was the uniform set that they wore, the 2375 set with the grey shoulders and the color-coded collars, etc. We'll do another episode in the future going into more detail about our uniforms, but that's one of the thematic elements that is dictated by our choice of starship. The name of our ship, the USS Dauntless, was inspired by the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, which is named for the fictional British warship depicted. As homage, we have adopted the pirate theme in our naming and insignia. Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl used a ship called, again, the HMS Dauntless, which was modeled after the historical ship, the HMS Victory. So here's a nice image of that ship. You can see she was a first-rate ship of the line that's first served in the mid to late 18th century. In fact, the HMS Victory, the real one, is still in service today. She's the longest-serving Navy ship in the world, as far as I know. She was the flagship of Lord Nelson. The HMS Dauntless, of course, was not real, but she looked just like the Victory. There have been two starships named USS Dauntless in canon Star Trek, one of which was in the episode of Voyager, was a fake starship. If you watch the episode, you'll see what I mean. It was a fake Federation ship that was named USS Dauntless. Later on in the series Star Trek Prodigy, in Season 1, we see that the Federation made their own copy of that fake USS Dauntless, which was also called USS Dauntless. Our chapter is not named after either of those ships. As you can see, we share nothing about them, and in fact, our chapter, the USS Dauntless, predates the real Starfleet USS Dauntless in Star Trek Prodigy by almost 25 years. So there's no link there. That's just a coincidence. By way of extending the metaphor, we may as well, since we're talking about the ship itself, let's take a look at the fictional ship here, so you can see what we're talking about when we talk about a Defiant class starship. This is what that is. So you may recognize the Defiant class from the series Star Trek Deep Space Nine, from seasons 3 onwards, I believe it was. The Defiant was a small starship that was associated with Deep Space Nine, and it was a very interesting and beautiful little ship, quite small. The founders of the USS Dauntless decided that a small starship class like the Defiant class represented the kind of agility and nimbleness that they wanted our crew to represent, and there it is. So if you'd like to take a look through the fictional specifications and history of the Defiant class design, you're welcome to do so again on our website. If you go to the About Us section and go to the ship, all of those details here. It's an interesting read. Alright, I think that is all that we need to cover for today. I'm not seeing any questions in the Discord, so I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you everybody for joining us this morning. This video will be uploaded to the YouTube channel shortly. Future episodes will most likely be live streamed to YouTube directly. We just weren't able to get that set up for today, but that should happen from next time onwards. That's it for today. Swart out.